Stop relying on flash and fireworks to get your point across. What works, it doesn't always mean that it's going to be boring. Don't worry about it being boring. You want it to work. You want it to be the right decision. You got to spend the time on the basics, man. This is primarily what drummers get hired for. Nobody's going to hire you to play drum solo on a record. Pocket is primarily the reason why we do what we do.
Woohoo! Well done. Well done. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Rob Beatdown Brown. Thank you so much for coming to Drumeo, brother.
Man. Yeah. It's about time.
It is about time.
No, I'm just kidding.
I was going to say, for those who haven't seen a lot of Rob Brown, but I'm looking at the chat here, and you've touched a lot of drummers' lives out there. People have learned so much from you. Paradiddle Diddle says, Rob Brown is a legend. I have learned so much from him. Gina, one of our members of Drumeo, huge fan of yours in the chat right now. So you have done some pretty cool things, man.
Man, yeah, I tell you what, it's been very cool. Like when I started making videos in my house, I don't even know what year it was, 2007 or something. I borrowed my father-in-law's Sony camcorder and went down there and yeah, it's just, I didn't think that, I mean, it was the hope that I would reach as many people as possible.
Yeah.
But, you know, this 15 years later, like I couldn't have called this.
Really?
You know what I mean? Like, it's cool to know that so many people have been connecting with the videos and have been just being able to soak in everything that I was throwing out. It just feels good, man.
Yeah.
It feels good to know that this stuff has been helping people.
Well, we brought you out for a special lesson, Improving Your Pocket Overnight. The first song you played there, that's actually from you have a play-along album.
I got a play-along album called Beatdown's Pocket Builders. And it's just 10 tunes on it. And they're not super fancy, crazy arrangements or anything like that. It's just a tool for drummers to practice working on their pocket. There's no solos or anything on the album or anything like that. You know, even if you've never played the tune before, if you find that pocket and just sit on it, you can literally play one groove through the whole thing until you get familiar with the song, and then you can start to mess around with it later. But the point of it is to be able to lock on to, you know, what's going on and what you're hearing, and just to develop that skill, just to develop that whole, the whole idea of just playing pocket. Because I think the internet, no disrespect, but, you know, the internet it's almost kind of turned drumming into this spectator sport, you know what I mean? And we
call it Drum Olympics.
Yeah, it's, you know.
It's like how fast, how many chops can you fit in?
Right? Yeah,
I hear you.
Left us drowning in a sea of 30-second notes and
linear fills.
Incidentally, they call it 30-second notes because people normally get tired of them after 30 seconds. I don't know if you knew that.
That's the first time I've heard that one.
Fun fact.
I love it.
But anyways, yeah, man, it's just the simplicity, I think, got lost.
Yeah.
In all the fireworks.
Well, I was vibing pretty hard on that first play along, so I think we got the right guy to talk about improving your pocket. And it's a tall order, improving your pocket overnight. So I've looked at the content. It's pretty cool stuff. For all you watching, you're in for a treat. How is someone supposed to improve their pocket overnight? Rob Brown, take it away.
The reason why it's possible, yes, to improve it overnight is because the things that I'm going to share with you guys today are conceptual. They're not physical exercises that you need to practice for a year until you get good at it, right? They're just ideas. So as soon as you think about it, you can apply it, right? So that's why I was bold enough to use the title Overnight, because it literally can. Like sometimes, you know, you want to improve on something, it's just a matter of spinning it around this way and saying, hey, you know, let me look at it like this. It's a switch in thinking. It can change a lot of things, right? So I'm going to share just some personal ideas. You take them or leave them. Hopefully you take them. But I'm pretty sure, man, that these things will help you out. So the first thing that we're going to talk about, I want to explain rhythmic foundation. The whole idea behind the rhythmic foundation, here's the thing. Every song that we play, every groove that we play has what I consider a rhythmic foundation. Rhythmic foundation is, you can think of it as sort of the framework, the principal main subdivision that the tune moves forward with, right? So every song, every groove that we play has one. Rock music, a lot of rock music sits on the 8th note, right? 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and that kind of thing. A lot of shuffles, hip hop grooves, reggae grooves built on the triplet, right? The whole idea is to just find just identify whatever the rhythmic foundation is, and then just stay in that lane. That's it. This whole idea, number one, it will improve your pocket. Number two, it kind of prevents you from overplaying, playing what's just not necessary. You know, not to call anybody out, but there's a lot of drummers that sometimes will just overplay for the sake of making things interesting, where it's just not really necessary to do. If you find that pocket, let's take the 8th note pocket, for instance. One of my favorite examples of this particular thing, like the 8th note pocket, Finish What You Started by Van Halen. The way Alex Van Halen plays through that song, like he rarely leaves that 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and through that whole thing, right? When he's playing, can I play this?
Please do.
When he breaks into that, right? That whole movement, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. He rarely leaves that pocket through the entire song, and that's one of the main reasons why the tune feels so good. If you start to get into that habit, you start to sort of learn how to recognize whatever that foundation of that groove is, and just stay in that lane with your fills and everything. You don't necessarily have to stick to that. I mean, if you want to change lanes, maybe move up to the next subdivision to play a fill, do that, and then come right back home. You know what I mean? There's nothing wrong with that. Nobody's ever gonna yell at you for just sitting in the pocket. I would much rather be told that I can play more than to be told I should play less, right?
Yeah. Always.
So it's always a safe bet to just find that foundation and sit in it, then you'll be good to go. So I got some examples.
Yeah, show us what to look for. Like, how do you even identify what the rhythmic foundation of a song is?
All right, well, let me give you a bass line. Let's use this one, for example.
Okay.
So if you're at home now and you're watching this, think in your head right now about what, if you were in a studio situation and you had to come up with something to play along with this bass line, something tasty. Think about what you would play. What I'm hearing is a strong 8th note movement. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So the first thing I'm gonna do is start there. I'm gonna sit in that thing. I'm probably just gonna play 8s on the hats, you know, 2, 4, and then just lay in that pocket. Now here's the thing. Because I'm sitting in that 8th note pocket, I'm pretty safe to do whatever I want to do within that, to experiment with different things. As long as I stay within that, right? I can vary up whatever I want to do just to make, you know, if I want to make some changes or vary up some different variations of the groove or whatever, I can mess around with that. So I have a lot of options there, but it's all still within that 8th note pocket. That's where I'm gonna start. If I'm told that I can play more on top of that, then I'll go ahead and do that. But you're almost guaranteed, as long as you stay in that pocket, whatever you play, some grooves are probably gonna work better than others, but but nothing's really gonna suck if you stay in that pocket. Now, if I start going nuts and playing all kinds of 16ths and 32nds and triplets over top of that to give it a little bit of flair, I'm probably gonna be told to calm down, right? It's just not necessary to do all of that extra stuff. So, you know, with the fills, I know some of y'all might be thinking, like when you're talking about fills and stuff, it's like, well, what am I gonna do within the eighth notes? There's just nothing I can play with eighth notes that's gonna sound good. It's boring. First of all, stop being a sucker, all right? There's a lot of things that you can do within an eighth note framework to make your fills work and sound interesting. They don't have to be flashy to work, right? So if I start that thing up again, I can just go.
Rob, I'm just going to say, in the control room, everyone was bobbing their heads. Christy was bobbing their head when they were doing that. I'm bobbing my head, so you're doing a good job.
So you see what I'm getting at, right? Like
totally see what you're getting
that framework, as long as you stay within you stay within that framework, stay in that lane, most of what you play is just going to work, and it's going to feel good, and your pocket's going to feel good. Let me give you another example.
Okay.
Let's check this bass line out. Now again, listen to this and think about what you might play on top of this. Now when I hear this, I'm hearing a pretty present 16th note movement, right? When you hear what the organ's doing and all that kind of stuff, you can hear that. So I'm probably gonna start there. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you found that 16th note pocket and you stayed there. Now because you're already in 16ths, especially with the fills now, you don't really need to go anywhere else. Like you can play some really nice sort of 16th note type fills inside of that pocket. So yeah, man, that's the whole idea behind Rhythmic Foundation, and that's how you can use it.
First step, be more aware and identify and be able to identify what that foundation is, so to speak.
Yeah, it's totally an awareness thing, man. The reason why drummers get rehired on a continuous basis, it's not so much because they got all these chops. What makes a great musician is their decision making. They just make good decisions. It's one of the reasons why I love Vinny so much. Vinny Colaiuta makes decisions that nobody else out there is making, and they just all work. It's not always about the chops. We all know Vinny's full of chops. The reason why I love listening to Vinny is because I don't know what he's gonna say next. All his decisions are perfect. It's like, how did he know to hit this here type of thing? It's easy to love a drummer because of their chops, but you know, the drummers that I love listening to are the ones that make good decisions. And this type of thing, doing this type of thing in any type of situation, professional or not, is good decision making. That's the whole idea behind that.
Okay, so we've identified it. We've shown great examples of 8th note and 16th note. So how does one now practice that further? How do you become more, I guess you can say, how do you fit in that pocket now that you've identified it?
Well, that's just a discipline thing. That's all it is. Whatever instincts you're currently fighting to play something flashy, just fight it. Just put it aside and say, no, I don't necessarily have to do that. If I'm told to play a big fill, that's one thing. But don't make that decision yet. Don't do that kind of thing. You know, you don't have to launch into this giant monster fill in a groove like this and think it's going to work, because most times it's probably not. But if you, like I said, if you just play some tasty stuff within that, then you're good to go. So it's just a matter of just getting used to getting creative inside of that one pocket. You don't have to stop relying on flash and fireworks to get your point across. You don't have to. What works, you know, it doesn't always mean that it's going to be boring. Don't worry about it being boring, man. You want it to work. You want it to be the right decision. You don't want it to be, you know, a big show.
Yeah.
And all of this kind of stuff just ties in to your pocket. Like if you think of all the legendary pocket players, Steve Jordan, Steve Gadd, some of the more recent ones, Derek McKenzie, Ash Sohn. You listen to these dudes, but they're not playing big monster flashy fills, but everything that they play, for whatever reason, just makes you feel like really good, right? And again, it's the whole decision-making thing. You just want to make good choices when you're on the kit. And when you think of stuff like this is the type of stuff that gets you rehired.
I love it. That's the mental side of it. What about the physical side? You know, you were talking about some accent exercises on the hi-hat and stuff. Like, how do those kind of things really impact your groove once you start playing? Once you got the headspace, you're in the right headspace. Now you need to apply that to your kit.
The hi-hat is a pretty powerful tool, especially when you think about accents. When you start using accents to enhance or change the feel of the groove, again, that's another part of the decision-making behind the kit, right? So, you know, if we go back to this example with that bass line, you do have a few different options here for what you can play on your hi-hats. Now you have 8 notes in this pocket. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You can put a spotlight on any one of those 8 notes that you want on your hi-hat, accent them, bring them out, and just see what it sounds like, right? So you have accented notes up here, your softer notes up here, and you're creating this sort of different pulse. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna play through couple of bars each of a few different ideas on the hi-hat over top this groove, right? So we can start with just your basic government issue 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Or I can go. Take a more musical approach, something like take it a step further. Right?
Play doubles there, Rob.
Sorry.
Shame on you.
I was coming out of it though.
It sounded great though. I'm just bugging you. It sounded great. So all those are musical decisions that you're making, all within the 8th note realm.
All within the 8th note pocket. Either one of them, like I said before, either one of them will work. some are going to work better than others, but they're all going to work. Like they're all within that sort of eighth note kind of pocket. You start doing all this crazy dancing and stuff on the hi-hat around this, you're going to start to disrupt what's going on. You don't want to do that, especially if you're working with a vocalist. You don't want to get in the way of all of that stuff, right? All you want to do is just lay down something cool, something sweet that's going to work. And then, again, somebody tells you that you can get a little more, put a little more sauce on it, then you can. Yeah. But, if you stay within that framework.
I've talked to many students, and me being one of them as well. Like when you're playing, a lot of times you get the groove down, I can play the groove, and everything you work on and you worry about is the fills. You practice your fills all the time. How am I going to go, especially when you're playing like a Weckl tune? Yeah. I remember recording myself playing Island Magic. Can I get that fill down? But yet my groove sounded terrible.
Right.
It's like the focus should be in making sure it fits and grooves like what you're doing, all that time and attention just into the hi-hats.
Yeah, man.
That's
just
how
small
you improve
details,
your pocket.
man.
The fill isn't going to improve your pocket.
No.
Work on your groove.
Work on your groove. Work on the little elements, the little extra things that make a big difference in how your groove feels and how it moves forward. Because that simple little thing, that I was doing on the hi-hats could inspire somebody else to do something to complement that. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Leave room for other people, right?
Leave room for other people, man.
So I'm going to bring up something that we talked about before this lesson that I definitely want you to talk about, and that's playing from the foot. Mm-hmm. This is another thing where I think a lot of drummers, they just ignore that side of it. And you're talking about almost like starting there. Kind of like what Sugarfoot Moffat, his approach a little bit. Is that correct? Or
yeah. I think that's about accurate. Here's the whole idea behind playing from the foot. Most of us, when we play, all the attention is on the top floor, right? We're always worrying about what the hands are doing, making sure everything up here is nice, and then the feet are just down there chilling and tagging along and whatever. Playing from the foot kind of reverses that. And the focus now is making sure that you're nailing every note on the kick drum inside of that grid. You'd be surprised at how well everything else lines up when you start from down there, right? And so, and it doesn't make any difference whether it's a groove or whether you're playing a fill or whatever. The point is, concentrate on the notes that you're playing on the kick drum and just focus on nailing them. When you do that, it's almost like everything else kind of falls into place afterwards. So, good example of that, like if I just launch into some kind of groove like this. All I'm focusing on So all the attention now is on the kick. I'm playing from the ground up. It makes sense because when you think about it, like the first note that we play when we launch into any grooves, it's kick drum, right? It's always the first note. Whatever we launch into,
it's like the anchor.
It's the anchor. It starts there. So why not put your attention on the kick? Make sure you're lining all of that stuff up, and then just let everything else follow instead of kind of working from the top down, you're working from the ground up. Trust me, when you do this type of thing and you're working with a bass player, they're going to love you because it's going to be so easy for them to lock on to what it is that you're doing because there's so much emphasis put on the placement of those notes you're playing on the kick drum.
Now, what you just did there was really cool. You were just air drumming. And maybe because I'm watching what you're doing, but in my head, I'm hearing that snare still happen. Do you do that when you're with a band? Do you do that when you're on your own practice? Or is that just like to demo what you're talking about?
It was just for demonstration purposes here, like just to sort of let you know.
Yeah, sure.
What I'm focusing on in my head. But I mean, when I was air drumming, I was placing those notes. As I was moving my hands around, you could probably hear the rest of the fill happen behind it, right? Yeah. But that's the thing, man. That's one of my principal approaches to really kind of nailing the groove. And again, it's one of those conceptual things. All you got to do is think about it and start doing it. It's not anything that you got to practice. You just got to think about doing it that way. And this is one of those things that can change your pocket overnight.
What do you mean by overnight? Yeah. So it's just literally a shift. So you're shifting your thoughts in putting more emphasis on the rhythmic foundation, putting more thoughts into the groove itself and not so much the fills, and then trying to think of your playing from the ground up, from your bass drum.
Yeah, right.
Love it. All right. How can we use click to improve your feel, especially in pocket? Lots of drummers are worrying about their timing.
Yeah.
You have a really cool example here.
Yeah. Now, I didn't invent this. You've heard other drummers talk about this idea. When you're using the click to improve your feel, the idea behind doing that, one of the things that really affects your feel is the space between the notes that you're playing. If you can't hear them, if you don't know where they are, then it kind of makes your grooves unstable. That's why you start speeding up, start slowing down, and things start getting a little wonky or whatever. Yeah. But if you're aware of the spaces, like if you know what's happening inside of those quarter notes, then it's the grid is there, it's just not lit up. You dig what I'm saying? Yes. It's present, you know it's there, and because you know it's there, because you have that awareness, it's gonna help to line everything else up. When you line everything else up, that overall improves your pocket. So the point behind doing these types of things that I'm about to show you with the click, practicing with your click this way is gonna help you hear what's happening in that space. You're gonna get used to hearing the subdivisions that aren't being played, right? And when you start doing that, again, it's just gonna help. It's gonna help to improve your feel, but more importantly, that awareness is gonna severely improve your timing. This type of thing is normally something that I bring up when I talk about timing, but it really applies to feel too, because timing and feel, like it's all the same thing. It's all about creating that steady flow, right? It can float a little bit, but you want that range where it still kind of feels nice. So this exercise here, like if I start this click up, we're gonna use this to work on our eighth note fill. All we're gonna do is mentally shift the click over by an eighth note. We want this to play or to highlight the spaces that we're not physically playing. So if we're counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, but we're letting this count the upbeats. Again, I didn't invent this, but if you want to improve your feel for eighth note grooves, this is a good way to do it. So what you're gonna do is use this, again, play those spaces, launch into your groove, but you're gonna start it on the 1 and let this take care of the spaces for you. So here we go. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so that's nothing new. Yep. But some of y'all may not have thought about this. When you go to practice playing your fills, this is beneficial because when you go to play any type of eighth note fill or something, a lot of the notes that you're gonna play are gonna land on these notes. So you can use this to help line up some of the notes that you're playing within that fill.
Okay. That messes with your mind, especially when you're so used to hearing the click on the one. How do you play without shaving off an eighth note at the end and going back down on the one again? That was my problem with this every time I try.
Yeah, well, see, this is the thing. The benefit of doing this is that it creates such an awareness of the pulse.
Right.
That you never lose it. You eventually get to the point where you can do whatever you want. You'll never lose sight of the one when you're doing this because you're hearing every single subdivision that you're not playing. But there are ways that you can use this to practice all different types of feels, you know, depending on where you place the click. And again, this is much more of a mental exercise. So you got to put a little bit of, if you're not used to doing that with a click, it's going to take you a little bit getting used to. Once you do get used to it, man, I tell you, it's a whole different thing.
So this is on the eighth note. Do you get into 16th notes?
We get into 16th notes. I'm going to show you a cool way. Let me show you a cool way how you can work on your shuffles. First of all, if you're going to do this, make sure you turn the accents off. Yeah. Because you want all your clicks to sound the same, right? Just so it doesn't mess with your head too much. But if you set your click to 120, it's a great way to work on your 6/8. So we start this up. And again, we're going to shift it over. So we're going to go find it. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. So,
wow.
I'm going to slow that down now.
Wow. Yeah.
I'm going to slow that down and let you know exactly what I did.
That was cool.
So this is 105.
Okay.
So 6/8, we're counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. You see what I'm doing here?
I see what you're doing there.
2, 3, 4. 1, 2. So again, you're going to take advantage of those offbeats to help you line up everything that you're going to play outside of the downbeats.
You might have to watch that again. Rewind and watch that, especially the quick one. The quick one took me a little bit of time. I'm like, okay, I see what you're doing there, and it's constantly fighting my everything about what I'm listening. But I understand it, and I can see how it's powerful. But it's not easy, eh?
It's not, because what you're trying to do is 2, 3, 4, 5, 5.
Yeah.
So your click is going to be here. 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So when it's hitting those offbeats for you, it's playing that space, and you're using that to help line everything else up outside of what it is that you're playing. It's a really good way to work on fills inside of a certain pocket.
Crazy. Start with the simple 8th note.
Start with the 8th note thing.
And then move to the...
Before you get crazy with it. And then, yeah.
Dude, thank you so much, man. so much.
Sorry for the confusion, bro.
No confusion. Like I said, there's so much power in this. All the little tips you just gave right there. It's not something that you can just let it wash off your, let it actually sink in, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
What is it? developing or improving your pocket overnight. It is possible if you just take these things like seriously and actually change the way you think about things. When you're practicing that kind of stuff, good luck, but I can see the power there. And it's definitely helped your groove. Like, you have a great pocket. The whole lesson, I'm just sitting there bobbing my head, and I hope you all were watching that at home too. So there's definitely some power in this message.
Yeah, man. And again, like the biggest effect, aside from the pocket, the biggest effect is your timing. Because when you start doing this, when you have the awareness of where the grid is, it lines everything else up for you. Once you're aware that it's there, it's not a blank space anymore. Now the lines show up. Once you know that the lines are there, it's an awareness. You stay out of the way. So you either leave the space there or you can drop some notes in, but now your notes are precisely where they need to be on the grid. And everything you play from front to back lines up. So the consistency of your timing is going to improve severely when you start doing that. And I know this got a little crazy, but the point of this, again, is to train your ears to hear what's happening in the spaces outside of what you're playing. So you're not just dropping notes and it's just open air between them. I think the biggest thing that I want you guys to take away from this is that I want you to make sure you're spending enough time developing your feel in your pocket as you are with the chops. Chops are important. Everybody needs to work on their chops. Chops create what I call headroom. Headroom, you practice the harder stuff to make the easier stuff even easier. But you got to spend the time on the basics, man. This is what I consider the basics. This is primarily what drummers get hired for, is to play pocket. Nobody's going to hire you to play drum solo on a record. Pocket is primarily the reason why we do what we do. And, you know, the other takeaway that I want you guys to take from this is that I really want you, if you're listening right now, I want you to, when you're playing, I want you to really start thinking about subdivisions while you play. Because for me, that's primarily the focus when I'm playing. So much so that all of this stuff doesn't really matter that much to me. As much as I love it, as much as I love the drums and cymbals and what these sound like and these gorgeous instruments, but I don't put these in front of the subdivision. The subdivision always comes first for me. And that helps me create the feel, and that helps my timing to remain stable. Because, you know, when I'm going to play something, I'm not too concerned with the drums that I'm hitting. There's not a whole lot of stuff that I can play that's not going to sound good, right? Yeah. This is not a piano. The only thing I'm concerned with is the subdivision. If I'm launching into a 16th note fill, I'm more concerned with lining those 16th notes up than what it, you know, with the drums that I'm physically hitting.
Totally.
Right?
The orchestration's second.
Orchestration is second, because here's the thing. When you strip all of this stuff away, this is all just color, right? If I go to play a fill, if I strip all of this color away, it's just, it's all just subdivision. Yeah. So I'm playing from back to front, right? Start with the subdivision, and then you just drop color on top of the subdivision.
Love it.
That mindset will severely improve your timing, your feel, and your pocket, because that is really gonna enhance what you play, especially when you're dealing with triplets. Because with triplets, the most important thing about triplets is being able to adjust the degree of the swing. When you're playing straight, straight is just straight. But with triplets, any kind of shuffles, grooves, or whatever, you got to be able to adjust. You can play a tight shuffle, you can play a loose shuffle. And that's all about, you know, how far am I going to stretch these notes to make it loose, or how much am I going to push them together to make them tight? It's just an awareness thing, man. So my approach to playing drums starts with the subdivision. When I do that, everything lines up, and I've hardly had anyone complain about my timing, so.
You have wanted to come on Drumeo for a while. We have been asked from multiple students throughout the years. When are you going to get Rob Beatdown Brown on Drumeo? So you're finally here. Any shout outs you want to give? Any thank yous? Any last words?
Yeah, man. Like real quick, like just everyone, everyone that, all the companies that chose to support me. Shout out to Sean Brown at Yamaha, Ryan Hamilton, Big Larry over at the Dario, Kelly Peisty, the folks at R-Tom, like everyone that saw what I was doing and chose to support me and think that my influence was enough to you know, make me part of the family. Shout out to them. And just like all of the fans of the channel. I can use the word fan so much, but you know what I'm saying. Like supporters, yeah. Support, all of my supporters, man. Everyone that helped me get my channel up to the point where someone like Dave could contact me and say, hey,
come on, Drumeo,
you
have something to say,
right?
Yeah.
I feel like we're all sort of in on this. I feel like we can all kind of enjoy this, is because all of the subscribers and supporters of my channel and stuff really kind of helped me to get here. And I'm just, honestly, I'm just super happy that everybody just gets what I'm saying. And all I really want to do is just help y'all become better drummers.